Welcome back to Google Developers Live at I/O. I'm Louis Gray from GDL, and I have with me two distinguished guests, Colt McAnlis and Ilya Grigorik. Thank you for coming, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
And we're here to talk about web performance today. And if you remember from the keynote, it seems like so long ago now, but it was only about 5 to 6 hours. We were talking about performance and speed and simplicity and all those things that really are part of Chrome and really part of everything that Google is doing with our approach to the web. And so I'm really happy to have Colt and Ilya on here. Both of them have spoken a lot about making the web faster and Chrome tools that'll get the job done to make everything go more quickly for the web platform. So I wanted to just get really started. Web performance is really all of what we do at I/O and through the rest of the year. You guys even have a booth upstairs. I just checked it out, which is great. Why so much attention on web performance, Colt?
So as every app developer knows, as we start to bridge into mobile, that it's not just about network performance anymore, about how fast your page loads. It's about how fast the page is to respond to the user once they're in it, right? So we have to feel like apps, which means developers have to worry about the three pillars of performance now: network, rendering, and compute. And because of this, we've got a lot of presence here, a lot of great talks going on to try to help developers start talking about this, bring this mental model to the table, and show them what tools they need to get things done.
It's interesting you bring up networking, rendering, and computing. I came from a world where computation was always the bottleneck, and it was the server that was slow. And I think what you've seen with networking has grown exponentially, 10x each round. And it's really become something where the data center kind of becomes a cloud and you don't think about the server anymore.
Yeah.
And it's the network that's the bottleneck. And that, as you mentioned, it can be really difficult and different and complex. So what are you guys doing up at the booth to take all that complexity and make it simple?
Well, we absolutely are sure that it's super complex, right? I mean, we as the Chrome developers spent a long time architecting this stuff, right? What we've actually done is we've assembled all of the brains at Google who deal with performance on a day-to-day basis, and we basically have them standing around for about 8 hours answering questions, right? In addition to that, they're going to be walking you through the tools that we use for our internal analysis and all of our profiling and showing you how to use them, and at best, if you bring us one of your sites, we'll actually tell you what's wrong and how to fix it as soon as possible.
And so that's Performance Alley upstairs.
Absolutely.
So I like the idea of hearing a bunch of gurus standing around like at my service. So what exactly are they going to be doing? Is it like I show up with my laptop and they're going to tweak my browser settings, or what's the deal?
We won't tweak your browser settings necessarily, although maybe we could, because as you saw in the keynote, we have the Chrome data compression, right?
Yes.
So that's already a nice win that you can enable. But as a web developer, I think another thing that we can take away from the keynote is not only is the web getting faster, it's also getting more ambitious in terms of the applications that we're building, right? Which is why we care about rendering performance, like 60 FPS in a browser. For game developers, this has been a day-to-day thing.
Absolutely.
For a lot of web developers, this is a new concept, right? So upstairs, we're talking people through kind of the steps of what are the tools in Chrome that can help you figure out what are the rendering bottlenecks. Maybe you have a CPU bottleneck, a compute bottleneck, or maybe it's networking. Right? So for example, for networking, we have a suite of tools called PageSpeed, which is basically like a performance linter. You run analyze and it tells you, here are the 10 things you should fix right now. And then we can also provide some tools to help you automate that web performance best practice, which is great.
Isn't it true? You never really eliminate the bottleneck, you just move it to a different place?
Absolutely, that's what happens, right?
And that's the way we always learn that. I mean, if you get it out of this spot, you're going to find something else that's hot.
Yep.
So you're talking about really like a performance analysis service. And
Pretty
kind
much.
of finding the best stuff and finding how you can optimize for that. I know we often have you online at GDL. I appreciate you coming on and talking about making the web fast. What are those things that web developers can really key on to try and make their pages load more quickly? What are the things that really are the slowdowns? I think one of the pieces was touched on the keynote was the option to get away from possibly JPEG and moving to WebP.
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that compression and things that are out there?
It's a really cool example. So it turns out for an average page on the web today, over 60% of all of the data transferred is actually images, right? So we're building pages which are very media heavy, lots of images. And with WebP, we can actually give or provide about 30% better compression over JPEG. And what we didn't mention in the keynote was 80% win over PNGs, right? Which we often use for alpha channel and transparencies, which are very popular in games and other places.
Yeah.
So you put those two things together by using something like a WebP format, and you get a huge savings, which fewer bytes transferred, which makes the page load faster. It also decreases the cost of your page, right? I think it's something that we forget, on a 4G connections. For a lot of users, bytes are expensive, so reducing that amount is actually very, very beneficial.
Well, you mentioned 4G connections. I'm going to date myself a little bit and go back and talk about modems.
Sure.
So the web they just announced its 20th anniversary, essentially. And so some of us have been using the web for a long time. And some of us were using Mosaic and Netscape Communicator and all those cool things. where you had essentially gray pages
Yep.
with blue links, and when you click through, you would get to text files.
Yep.
And you had to do that because the downloading speed wasn't even possible to load an image, and it was painful to download hundreds of kilobytes of data, which are things we absolutely take for granted. And I think often what we run into is if you have a pipe and you make that pipe bigger, the people who are designing your apps are going to fill that pipe.
Yep.
And so how do you manage that kind of one-upmanship on the equipment side that's really sucking down the data to the people that are creating bigger and more greater apps?
So I think it's a challenge to both us developers, on Chrome and at Google and all the rest to make. So we want to build more ambitious applications. We want live streaming, right,
Yes.
to happen. We want to deliver rich media, rich games in the browser and all the rest. So developers keep pushing us to build more ambitious applications, which means we need to improve the performance of the web, performance of the browser. But it is a collaboration, right? We can't fix everything within Chrome, which is why we have the performance area,
Exactly.
where developers can come, show us their application, and it gives us feedback as browser developer, right, to say, here are the things that we need to address, help developers fix, or vice versa. Like, we were not educating developers about something really
What
well.
is it about Chrome specifically that makes you say it's speedier? What is it that we can test on, and what's different about that browser?
Well, from the ground up, we always focus on performance. I mean, that's one of the cornerstones of Chrome that started at the beginning was we need to make a faster, more secure browser for people because that enhances the web experience for everyone, right? The browsers get better, the web gets better, everyone gets happier. So we do a lot of things across network, compute, and render to make sure this happens. V8 is by far one of the top JavaScript VMs out there. The way we handle rendering and our utilization of the GPU is top tier, right? We do things that no other browsers can do just right now. Networking, we do a lot of great stuff like the flywheel technology as well as the way we're compressing the network transfer
The
stuff.
really cool example with network is Chrome literally learns the topology of the web, and it becomes faster the more you use it. We learn your browsing patterns, and next time you open the Google News homepage, we say, hey, we can preload these other pages to make it seem faster, pre-rendering and other tricks under the hood.
So a lot of pre-caching and fetching of pages that I
Right.
might go to in the future.
Right.
Almost like cheating. I think one thing that Linus, I believe, was touched on today, they looked at the performance of Chrome on JavaScript, both on desktop and on mobile.
Yep.
And on the desktop side, year over year, maybe we increased by 50%. And if I apologize if I get the number wrong. And then mobile, it practically doubled. And so when you look at mobile, how important is making the web fast relative to desktop?
Oh, it's everything right now, right? As we've already talked about, the amount of content coming from mobile platforms is eclipsing desktop more and more and more. We're seeing that, and especially it's becoming the life force for a lot of these small businesses that rely on mobile for their input and their income. A user visiting a website has a different sort of expectation when they visit on mobile than they do on desktop, and so decreasing the load time, increasing the performance is going to be critical for these guys to stay afloat as the technology moves forward.
Yep.
Cool. Well, I know we actually did this pretty fast. It's good for guys who are doing performance to talk quick, and I appreciate your performance on it. I appreciate you joining us at GDL at I/O. For those of you on the live stream, we're going to get back to your sessions next, and follow us again. We'll be at GDL at I/O again at 5:20 talking about Drive. See you there.